Alrighty then, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Quality Candor, the podcast. Yes, it's back. God help us all, and here's hoping third time's the charm. Now, to explain the little journey this project has taken, and to also explain what we're about to do, allow me to just kind of give you the long and short. This channel started in about 2021. After my year from hell, that was my first year in college. The year from hell in general, that was 2020, for reasons we shall leave at the door, because that's not what this channel's about, in spite of the name. I created Quality Candor because I wanted to share a frankly obscene knowledge I happen to possess of the world of arts and entertainment. A massive historical base of knowledge, a wide-ranging palette that can lead me to drone on about everything from the fine pastoral qualities of a John Constable painting to geeking the hell out over Supertramp, which we might do later on. Not quite sure what we're... that's going to get into later, though. The long and short of it is, I happen to pull upon a wide array of knowledge in the world of film, in the world of television, literature, comics, music, you name it. I can probably talk about it for an interminable period of time. And that's what Quality Candor was initially going to be. And it started out as a review channel, gave it the old college try, no pun intended, and then sure enough, college reared its head and it just became impossible to get videos done when I wanted them to. In about 2022, besides the fact that my summer job made it impossible to do videos, when I sat down and did that review of Rock and Rule, towards the end of it, and it doesn't ruin the review, and I stand by all the pieces I've done on this channel. That's why the only things that have been removed are the, hey guys, here's what we're doing with Quality Candor, because, well, I have no need of them now, because those plans either some came to pass, some failed, life's life, it happens. I stopped doing the standalone reviews because that review in particular, I turned into the kind of 2010 angry reviewer caricature thing organically, of my own volition, but in retrospect, like literally a few days after I published it and listened back to it, I could not stand. I could not stand that style of delivery and approach. I can stand it in a very natural setting like this, which is just me talking to you all from the back of one screen to the front of another, but in a narrator format, I cannot for the life of me stand talking, doing that kind of, the blood pressure rises and you get tense and you get, irrationally irate. It's good as a comedy bit. It's the reason why guys like Doug Walker, James Rolfe, they've been, making a killing at it, since I was fucking 3, if we wanted to be perfectly honest. But I just could not stand it myself. It felt inauthentic to me. And so that's why the reviews stopped. Then last year, after I graduated college, I decided to do a magazine style show. And the magazine style show, which became Cult Refresh, I love as a format, and I hope to replicate the general character of it here in this podcast. But as a working format, kids, don't ever try to make what amounts to a half-hour or a 20-minute PBS level production on a one-man unit. For those who don't know, for those who only know me through Quality Candor, and those who know me from back when I started on Twitter as this cinephile wunderkind, I currently run so many things. I am a current layout editor for Anvil Iron Age magazine. I created the pulp media, I'll say franchise for lack of a better word, 365 Infantry, this exploitation, science fiction world, more or less, that tells a variety of stories within it. I do that. I'm head editor of A Fistful of Film, and I've also been gigging, doing tons of various kind of odd jobs here and there. I work covers for DMR Books. I currently, for those who are curious, and this will most certainly date this program, but that's all right because we'll get into that. I currently have teamed up with the fine folks at Kursova and writer J.D. Cohen on his Star Wanderers campaign. I produced a special soundtrack single, which, if we make our stretch goals, will soon flower into a full-grown EP. And links for all of this will be in the description. I'm not going to sit down here and rattle off URLs like a freaking automaton. But the point is, I'm doing all of this on top of trying to do video review work. And I understand why now, when someone really puts their mind to doing YouTube or doing any video creative platform, why it becomes the job. And, you know, I think back to the recent retirement of Matthew Patrick over at Game Theory and that entire ensemble of projects. And hearing him detail kind of the back and forth, especially when it's at that, for lack of better words, corporate level, you know, building your own business, starting from these channels and then going outward. I can't blame the man for retiring at this point. It sounds like a hell of a gig, and I wish him all the best. So that's what happened with Cult Refresh. And it's like Curse of the Third. When I started writing, I started trying to write novels. Dumbest move you can make. And I'd always, like a fool, I'd always wing it. I'd always go by the seat of my pants. Now, with short stories, so long as you jot down a log line and a general idea of what happens, you can jam a short story out. Same with novelettes, same with novellas. A novel, I'd always get stuck on the third chapter, and that's kind of what happened to Quality Candor. I did 3 standalone reviews, got stuck on the third. I did 3 episodes of Cult Refresh. I loved the format, but I was burned the hell out before I really had a chance to let it settle. That, you know, died on the 3rd episode as well. Although, I won't say death, because I do wish to bring it back. Maybe it's a monthly, maybe it's a bi-weekly if I can swing it. But that is the magazine style of show I think best suits me because of all these various things I take interest in. I mean, just to tour you through the room. And, you know, obviously, at some point we're going to start doing this on video with nice cameras and all that jazz. But just to tour you through my room, where I am sitting here recording this, I'll just start picking out things from off the wall, on the shelves, and you'll get a good idea of what it is, you know, I keep surrounding me. Hanging up on the wall is a poster for Pink Floyd's The Wall, the movie Alan Parker did. Wonderful picture. Charles Bronson in Death Wish. George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. Staring at me is my giant set of just fine British genre television, for lack of better words, and also just classic adventure television in general. I got a bunch of Jerry Anderson shows. I've got the complete set of The Prisoner. I've got Blu-rays of Knight Rider, Airwolf, Johnny Quest, Cowboy Bebop. Looking down, I see my beautiful box of records. Staring me at the front is one of my recent pickups, The Horse by The Ventures. Wonderful band, wonderful slice of instrumental rock and roll from the heyday. And behind that is a golden goose I'd been eyeing for a while now, and that is a recording of Gustav Holst's The Planets, conducted by none other than the great Bernard Herrmann, who, in his infinite wisdom, takes some of the cues slow as molasses, including an opening with Mars as this bottomless leviathan my God, it's like hearing... It's like when you see a battle scene about to take place in a film, and you get this beautiful, extreme wide shot, you know, like go into the Leone extremes of the landscape, and you just see thousands in like a dust cloud crossing a field with rifles and muskets and everything. That's what listening to Herman's take on Mars sounds like. Behind me, I have all my VHS tapes, which, if I remember, one of my recent pickups was the 1940s Green Hornet serial. So that's back there. Back here also, on my opposite side, I see a wonderful graphic novel of The Shadow in the Coils of Leviathan. I also have a couple back issues of Analog, magazine of fantasy and science fiction, heavy metal, mwah, love it to death. Got my stack of classics. I see Tennessee Williams' Streetcar Named Desire, my personal little stash of Richard Adams' work, The Plague Dogs, both Watership Down books, Brian Jakes' Redwall, classic, gotta love it. And, you know, I could go on and on and on, and undoubtedly we will. Over the course of this hour, it probably will be an hour, because I can go on like this for ages. But the point is, I have kind of surrounded myself with the things that I love and the things that I love talking about. But there are just not enough hours in the day between making these, you know, because by trade, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a composer, I'm a writer. I do not... It's not just this, which again is why I do not envy the people who do make YouTube and do make these video platforms their entire career. You guys, it is a hell of a gig. It is a hell of a gig. What I hope to do here now with Quality Candor as a project is to create this, the podcast, as a kind of baseline. Keeps you here, keeps you updated, keeps you interested, and from there I can kind of focus on the more infrequent stuff. There are 2 videos that I've been threatening you all, and I don't make threats, I make promises around here, and those I hope to focus on. The first one, we'll get the heavy stuff out of the way, but the first one is called The Radiation Wave of Cinema. I've done articles about this on A Fistful of Film. I wrote a term paper about it. It's this particular period in 1980s cinema that focuses exclusively on the threat of nuclear war, nuclear terrorism, weapons, energy. It looks at all these at the street level. This isn't like a fail-safe or a Doctor Strangelove where we're watching the military, you know, going ham about whatever. This isn't bug-eyed irradiated monsters like Them or Godzilla. This is about the normal people that get caught up in these grand scenarios that they have no control over. I think probably everyone of a certain vintage can recall the power of watching The Day After, or for those across the pond in the UK, Threads. Films that have not lost an ounce of their almost ineffable ability to overwhelm. Sometimes there are no words for the emotions you have when you experience films like these. But it also isn't all, you know, doom and gloom, although there's definitely a heavy cloud floating over it. I've been doing research on this topic for years now. Like back in high school, I was thinking about this. I'm looking at the various correlations. I'm not really looking for particular causes for this. I think it's just one of those, it's in the air, people are thinking about it. So what happens? Someone gets the idea to say, hey, how can I produce art that reflects these emotions, reflects these thoughts, reflects these feelings? And, you know, sometimes it makes its way to President Reagan, and it gives him a hell of a lot to think about. So that's a Radiation Wave of Cinema. That is officially on the docket. I want like hell to make that happen. The other video that I've been threatening you all with, that I shall officially make a promise here, my promise to the people of the Video Podcast Network, is not going to be to not eat another morsel of food until Margaret Thatcher is dead and buried, but is to produce a documentary on the Phenomena rock album series. Now, for those who don't know what Phenomena is, it has the great misfortune of having been released in 1985, the same year as the Dario Argento film, which also features rock music by the likes of Iron Maiden, Anti-Sex Gang, and Motorhead. But Phenomena was the brainchild of Tom Galley, who, if memory serves, is the brother of Trapeze and Whitesnake guitarist Mel Galley. And it's this trilogy of wonderfully done AOR, smooth, synthetic, hard rock albums that have sort of a conceptual thrust to them, and also were originally going to be this MTV music video extravaganza. They managed to make some minor hits. On their second record, there was a surprise hit in South America, the single Did It All for Love, which featured the voice of none other than John Wetton from Asia. But also this record series is known as being this bizarre supergroup project. The first album featured the likes of Glenn Hughes, Cozy Powell. The next record features, undersung heroes like Ray Gillen, who was in Black Sabbath for a spell before doing Badlands. Like, I believe Max Bacon's on a few tracks. Some of you may remember him from GTR, which is one of the big, prog rock band breaks up, members reassemble for random projects. And they even managed to get, for, I believe, the third album, guitar performances from Brian May and Scott Gorham from Thin Lizzy, just insanely stacked lineups. And it's an album series that has not had its story told, and maybe I beat the current rights holders to the punch. Maybe they have something planned, because they even have been re-releasing the Merv Spence era of the project, and we're going to get into all of that later down the road. So that is the second official promise of Quality Candor, the podcast. We have 2 documentary productions in the works, and they're going to take their sweet ass time. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to get, discipline myself and really get to work on these, because these are projects that I truly believe in, and I don't think I could get them done with the trying to do cult refresh on top of them. So what exactly is this podcast going to be? This podcast is going to be weekly. We're going to attempt to do weekly. We're going to attempt to make it a Monday morning show. And the reason why is because of another misgiving of college, recurring theme. Some people rebel against their families. I rebel against somewhere I paid to go. But I fell in love with radio, working at the college, going to the college I did, and working at the college radio station when I did. But unfortunately, the events that transpired in 2020 cast a long, long shadow over my time there, and kind of irreparably damaged a lot of my opportunities to really make good on what I wanted to do as a disc jockey, as a radio host. And so I think the easiest thing for me now is to do what I'm about to do here. These are not going to be, uber duper deluxe videos. You're just going to get the intro, the thumbnail, then the end card, and that's it, kids. I'm going to obviously, in the spirit of radio, we're going to bring in audio samples and snippets. Got to be careful when it comes to the music, because sometimes the content ID goes haywire. I had to fight off something for the Cult Refresh series, because some rights holder got antsy about my use of Aretha Franklin in the last episode, the previous episode, episode 3. So that's going to also be kind of the reason why you're getting this very stripped down, but hopefully very informative, very relaxed, good drive time kind of stuff. Hopefully I get it up early enough. But I've been getting pretty good about that. Been getting good about that with my newsletters over on 365 Infantry. Bang on, 6 o'clock in the morning. Be there or be squared, kids. Be there or be square. So, with that said, I think that's enough rambling into the intro of this piece. And I hope you kind of get the gist of why things are the way they are now. So let's just give you quickly the format we're going to do here. And this is what I mean in that I hope, I don't consider Cult Refresh a dead end. I want to keep the same structure as Cult Refresh. Talking about a film, talking about a record, and talking about a piece of, shall we say, storytelling. Whether that is an audiobook, or if that's a comic, or if it's just a plain old book, or whatever you have. I might not do the today's top shelf talent stuff, and some of the interstitial stuff we're going to hold off on. One, obviously the gallery's not going to happen because I need this to be as easy a thing to put together as possible. But also Rare Groove Roundup. I hope to get this project syndicated through all the podcast platforms, your Spotify, your Apple Podcasts, do all the good Podbean stuff. But at the same time, I also do still want to do the Rare Groove Roundup because it gives that feel of a radio show. I get to put on a 45 for you all, let you relax. We go out of one segment, we come into the next. And, the nice thing about using Rare Groove is that a lot of these are in, copyright limbo. Whether you can go back through, you can check your, you can check the BMI archives, you can go through, check all the local, publishing houses when it comes to music and copyright and all that. But, so many of these records and songs are being lost to time because no one comes in and rescues them. I was actually talking about this the other day during some Backroom Deals with someone. We were talking about how there are certain books that never even conceived of digital copies ever being a thing, being able to have an ebook. And so many wonderful titles that sold millions and millions at the time are completely unrepresented in this era of the Kindle and the Nook and the ebook. And that goes pretty much double for music too. And there are things. A lot of the library labels, your KPMs, your Brutons, your Sonatons, they're starting to release a lot of their back catalog, or have made their back catalog available digitally. Perry Music from out of Canada, wonderful library of jazz and classical and electronica. There's a piece from, the album name escapes me, but if you look up Time Crystal's Perry Music, you're in for a dreamboat of a song. And obviously I can't play it here because then I'll get content ID'd because they actually take care of their back catalogs. But I'm gonna be very choosy about what some of those tracks that I share, and I'm also going to be linking the sources they're coming from, because these are people who are doing the Lord's work when it comes to archiving. These are folks like Andre Navarro II. Music for Empty Rooms, I believe, is another wonderful library of music over there. And just so many incredible releases that are just not in the circulation of the digital age. And the only way we can is essentially, like in the world of MST3K, keep those tapes moving. Keep on taping. And that's kind of what's been happening here with some wonderful digitizations from old wax records. One very important thing, and I'm sure you've caught on to it by now, this is going to be completely unscripted. To cut through all the pretensions and all the bullshit and just to talk about what it is I want to talk about, and that is the films, the stories, the music that I love, and I want you to love, and I want you to at least experience, take for a test drive, expand the palette. Expand the palette. That is the most important quality, I think, and I hope this show will provide to all you listeners out there. And also, just to clear the air, I will still be uploading to the various video platforms that I also host Quality Candor on, but I will not be promoting those as heavily. So yeah, just want to get that little bit of housekeeping out of the way. This is still going to go out on all 4 platforms because I like having backup channels, but YouTube's pretty much going to have to be the place it's going to be. But if you want to, if you got your reasons for staying off this platform, and trust me, I know there are plenty, you can find us at Dailymotion, Rumble, and BitChute. Now, first thing I want to talk about is, and this also gets into something that's at least topical, tangentially. This will not happen often, by the way. I am a very old fogey. You're about to bear witness to my antiquity of spirit, and we're going to go right to the top with a book from the 1910s. Fortunately, if memory serves, Pocket Universe has announced that in association with the Burroughs estate, that John Carter, Warlord of Mars, who first made his grand debut over a century ago in the serialized novel A Princess of Mars, is making his debut into the world of the radio drama. Full cast production, they just announced it at the top of the month, and I could not be happier because I recently finished the first of 3 John Carter audiobooks that Candor made back in 2012. No guesses for what it was in conjunction with. The Disney adaptation of A Princess of Mars, John Carter, which was mercilessly buried and assassinated on the altar of "we're just buying Lucasfilms." And I just finished A Princess of Mars. Now, for those not in the know, A Princess of Mars was the story of John Carter, a Virginian veteran of the Civil War, who, after a freak of circumstance, finds himself teleported to Mars, as you do. And it is upon arrival that he finds himself greeted with a most alien civilization, and he has to try and navigate his way through it given his present inexplicable circumstances. And during the course of his stay, finds himself falling in love with a Martian princess and going to war with practically everyone just to get to her. And it truly is one of the purest works of American adventure fiction I think I've ever read and may ever read. It is truly a zenith, if not the zenith, of adventure storytelling, full stop. I started it probably a month or 2 ago, idly, and didn't think much of it at first, thinking, oh, this is fun. Nice, charismatic, fun to listen to. And then slowly, it happened once on a car ride. And then I started putting in like a chapter or 2 a day. And just this past week, I finished it. I finally got to the end of it, about 3-4 hours later. And the funniest thing happened. A character who I know has like 11 books under his belt. The estate is still making adventures with his name on it. There are adaptations in the world of comics. my in-world representative for having a Princess of Mars on audio is that I got one of the old Gil Kane, Marv Wolfman run of John Carter on Marvel, the first king-sized annual. Beautiful, beautiful art, by the way. So, a character who I know has a whole series ahead of him. All the characters, Dejah Thoris, Tars Tarkas, everyone, shows up in a book somewhere in the future. Immediately, I put on the audiobook for Gods of Mars, second book, just to listen to the foreword. Just to hear from the mouth of that Virginia gentleman that everything was all right. That his beloved Dejah Thoris, their son, everything's all right. Man, I have not cared about characters like these in years. I've fallen in love with characters recently. In honor of the big 60th anniversary shenanigans, I recently got back into Doctor Who and found, to my surprise, I may actually enjoy the classic series more than the revival, which I was reared on. My first exposure to Doctor Who was the era of Chris Eccleston, David Tennant, Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi. The whole fiasco with Jodie Whittaker escaped me because I went to college by then, and I kind of forgot BBC America was included with the cable packages at college, so I just kind of forgot to tune in. And I wish Ncuti all the best. I love his energy as the Doctor. Gut tells me they really have to prove that they can still write in a manner that puts characters above all else, because that is what makes the classic series for me so incredibly compelling, is that I look at each Doctor from that era and I'm just mesmerized. I can memorize them quite a bit too, but I'm mesmerized by the various performances. And the big winner of this rediscovery of the series was Jon Pertwee. I love, love, love Jon Pertwee as the Third Doctor. And I've fallen in love with characters. There are characters I love returning to, like, in the case of Star Trek, I grew up on Star Trek, so naturally coming back to an episode of the original series or of that next generation of expanded media with, the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, etc. I have characters that I love returning to. I have characters that I love, just kind of checking in on. I've never been that affected by a story in quite a while. And it's because of the simplicity and earnestness, too, of A Princess of Mars. It is such a genuine, unapologetic piece of adventure fiction. You believe these characters. You hang on their every word. You understand the reason for the misunderstandings. You understand their motivations. And, while it may not be like you yourself would, slaughter a frickin' army, for this princess, even though you've, run afoul of the ancient customs of Mars, unbeknownst to you, you are absolutely, you're as smitten with Dejah Thoris as dear John Carter is. You are... I'm not joking. I was hollering with fucking glee during certain passages. Every time Woola returns. Oh my god. I'm like, hallelujah. The boy's back in town. It is such a genuinely fun book. And there are passages in that thing that are over a century old and could mop the floor of so many writing today. I had a moment when I was reading reading this thing, where at the end of a chapter, I'm just like, how certain people will read something or watch something and be like, why am I in this business? I will never achieve that. That's what happened upon reaching the end of this particular chapter. The absolute mastery of of just storytelling Burroughs possessed. It's no wonder so many of his characters have endured over the ages, and I eagerly look forward to where this full cast audio production goes, and I also look forward to diving further into the world of John Carter of Mars. Now in the realm of movies, we're going to kind of split the difference, because you probably see there on the title card two covers, one at the top and one at the bottom. The top is a gentleman looking through his eye, covering his eyes and looking through his fingers, and the bottom is a lovely piece of artwork from, fun fact, Hanna-Barbera. The top picture is Endless Night, and the bottom picture is Rock Odyssey. However, that is not reflective of my ranking of those two. In fact, I enjoy both, but they're also very different films. For those who don't know, Endless Night is an Agatha Christie mystery concerning a entrepreneurial young man who finds himself in love with a exceptionally rich woman, and it's through her that he seems to make so many of his dreams come true. But he also has to deal with the relatives. And try to remember the tagline. Only 3 people in 100 guess the answer to Endless Night. And it's funny, too, because it's also being packaged. I got my hands on the Indicator Blu-ray through Powerhouse. And the cover is pitching it like an old Giallo paperback. And I mean the true Giallo paperbacks, the one they actually printed in Italy with the yellow covers, with the red and white outlines, circled art. And the gentleman who is our entrepreneurial spirit is Hugh Bennett, wonderful, wonderful actor. And Hayley Mills is the lady he finds himself married to. And top that off with a bizarre cast including Pierre Oscarson, Britt Eklund, George Sanders in one of the last films before his passing. And you get this fascinating ensemble of characters to keep tabs on, and this very modern sort of psychological mystery, in that there's a lot of cross-cutting to flashbacks in the past, to things that never were, or things that might be. And slowly, as the pieces reveal themselves, slowly the bigger picture emerges, and I won't spoil it, because, well, clearly it's got to be a damn good secret if only 3 people in 100 guessed it. So tell me the marketers, anyway. Endless Night is also just a gorgeously shot film, shot in the wonderful English countryside, but with a modernist twist to the architecture. The house that Bennett and Mills build is a mid-century modern gem. Like classic 70s chic. It's no wonder the cover looks like a Giallo paperback, because by God, I could see Sergio Martino blocking out the murders in this mansion. It is that kind of ultra 70s chic. But what's certainly not ultra 70s chic, but is definitely worth a mention, is, to be honest, the reason why I bought this film. It was not to see Hugh Bennett and Hayley Mills re-team after I think it's their third pairing. First being The Family Way, second being Twisted Nerve, which became famous for the man behind the reason for my owning this movie, Bernard Herrmann. In one of the funniest trilogies, by the way, because Bernard Herrmann scored both Twisted Nerve and Endless Night, and we'll talk about his score in a minute, but also Family Way with Bennett and Mills was scored by Paul McCartney of the Beatles, with the assist from Beatles producer George Martin. But because he didn't know a damn thing about film scoring, he managed to get a lesson from Bernard Herrmann. It's a perfect trilogy. You can't go wrong. And you also can't go wrong with a excellent and deliciously English score from this later period of Bernard Herrmann's career. There is passages of pastoral resplendence. Composer Howard Blake, which many will know for his immaculate music for the Christmas special, The Snowman. He's the man who wrote Walking in the Air, which makes me cry like a son of a bitch every time I listen to it. He plays Moog, the Moog synthesizer for Bernard Herrmann on this one. He couldn't find a theremin anywhere in London. And nothing is so quintessentially and as beautifully Herrmann-esque as that opening prelude, with the swirling string figures and this haunting theremin line. This late period of Herrmann's career is very fascinating because obviously after the breakup with Alfred Hitchcock over the Torn Curtain score, which, if I'm being brutally honest, Hitch was in the wrong, and that's not just personal bias, that is the strength, the robustness of Torn Curtain as a score by Bernard Herrmann. But at the same time, Herrmann could probably only save that film so much. There is this unique aura about his film music after Hitch. Maybe it's the mystique of it kind of being the official demarcation point. This is the moment Bernard Herrmann is in his latter-day phase, and though he still makes a bunch of famous scores, Fahrenheit 451 for Francois Truffaut, ends his career, obviously not of his own volition thanks to the heart attack, but ends his career with Brian De Palma's Obsession, which the man was madly in love with as a film and as a score. And of course, world famous, without him, internet doomers would not have a hope in the world of finding a quintessential piece of jazz quite like the music for Taxi Driver. Ends his film with two scores that should make anyone else's, and that's not to mention the fact that he started his career scoring Citizen Kane. But there's this unique mystique about this late period. You hear it in his music for It's Alive. You hear it in his music for The Night Digger, the Patricia Neal vehicle written by Roald Dahl. It's maybe it's the recording, maybe it's the archival quality, but there's a very haunted sound to this particular period, and you can hear it in the heartbreaking nostalgia of Fahrenheit 451. You hear it in the very moodier passages of Endless Night. Herrmann's music kind of is in its own category. It's not dated. It's never anything less than what the film needs. And it's also quintessentially Bernard Herrmann. Fits in like a hand in a glove. And that's probably one of the greatest assets to this film, too. On top of Sidney Gillat's fine direction, keeps the thing moving. I did not feel the runtime on this picture. I was wrapped around the mystery every step of the way. And of course, I won't give it away, because only 3 in a million, 3 in 100 guessed. Although, hopefully more than just that 100 saw this picture upon release. While it is a bit hard to get a hold of, here's hoping a mass market release happens for Endless Night, because it's another wonderful little venture into the mysterious world of Agatha Christie and into the charming affairs of the British murder mystery. And of course, with music by the man who made you scared of showers, you can't go wrong with it. The other picture, Rock Odyssey, which I'm currently holding on a DVD-R I burned, because remember to archive the rare stuff, kids. You never know when it'll just vanish into the ether. Rock Odyssey was a 1987 animated, initially started as a feature film, then turned into an animated TV special from Hanna-Barbera that essentially does what American Pop does, but in a very metaphorical sense, featuring this lead character, Laura, who's this sort of avatar for all romantics in search of true love. And the film follows her as she loves and leaves a myriad of men for a variety of reasons. And it takes place over about a 20, 30-year period of American popular music, with, of course, the music setting the backdrop to all these extraordinary, visuals and images and this pretty decent through line. All credit due to the director of the picture. I believe that is Robert Taylor, if memory serves. Trust me, if it doesn't, you'll be hearing about it in the description. You can tell this man worked in the animation industry. He gigged all over the place because the aesthetics and the genuine resplendence of this film is like street art come to life. In its best passages, it becomes this kaleidoscopic, enveloping force, backed by hit and miss-em sound-alike covers of popular tunes, which unfortunately is the reason why it's been hidden from all of us. I'll leave a link in the description to the Rebel Taxi video, because that's where you can find the most complete edit of this film, stitching together all known footage we have access to and doing a little AI upscaling to get the quality up to snuff. But the animation of the 50s and 60s segments, which also are where most of the music is pretty bang on the money, including, well, I wasn't expecting them to do a vocal cover because it's Hanna-Barbera still. Hoyt Curtin, veteran music director for the company, puts in a scorching big band version of Purple Haze, Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze. So it isn't quite as, kick-ass as The Real Thing as seen in Bakshi's American Pop, which is one of my all-time favorite animated movies. It still swings for the goddamn fences. And some of these arrangements stick the landing perfect 10 out of 10. And then the film slowly starts to fall apart towards the end of the first half of what was originally the full 70s segment, because this was supposed to come out in like 1981-82, so it would have been a contemporary of American Pops. The 70s segment hangs all right for the most part, but you can tell it's only the first half, that there's no real reason for the 80s segment to be called the 80s segment. It all feels very much a part of the 70s. And the frame device that Hanna-Barbera cooked up for their second pitch at getting this produced and released is a talking jukebox, voiced by Scatman Crothers in one of his last roles. I believe he recorded his parts in 85, and any last-minute dub work that had to be done was taken over by Frank Welker. I believe the picture was dedicated to Crothers. Incredible voice. And I also, it's nice having a voice from the rock and roll era, doing the honors. But you could tell that the 70s segment is only the first half, because he talks about women's lib, environmentalism, and stuff like that. But the first half is only really about the environmentalism stuff, and then the second half is when she hits her yuppie working girl phase, which, fits seamlessly into what happened in the 1980s. But that in the 80s segment, and this is what threatened to ruin this film for me. And they did their damnedest to ruin this film for me, and they couldn't quite overcome it, because the 60s segment alone is worth watching this film for, because it concerns PTSD and a Vietnam veteran. And they do not pull their punches. Taylor and company do not pull their punches. It is some of the greatest imagery concerning the era and concerning Vietnam I may have seen in an animated film, full stop. I may have seen an animated film. I may have seen a Vietnam film, full stop. It really has this great grungy heavy metal magazine feel to it. And it utterly, utterly saves this film from any flaws that, you know, could sink it. And it has its flaws. And, you know, going back, the 50s rock and roll stuff, that's also cool because it all feels right in terms of iconography, in terms of the covers, which are probably the best in that first half. But that first half of the picture, gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. Then midway through the 80s segment, there's this god-awful cover of Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. And it's a Hanna-Barbera AMV set to footage of all their delightful cartoon characters of the 50s and 60s, well, mostly the 60s, dancing their corny sitcom, you know, dance cycles, which you could see the layouts being recycled from shot to shot. And I was like comatose after this. Not only was it the tonal whiplash, but picking the most kid-coddling pop song of all the pop tunes you could have picked for the 80s. To, you know, because the general idea was that because the film was going to be released in 82, there wasn't a lot of 80s music to pull in. It would have been a lot of late 70s stuff. But they went out of their way to pick a completely saccharine and inoffensive pop song. And it just shatters the tone of the film, honestly, irreparably. I got through the rest of it just because I wanted to see where it was going, and there's some great animation towards the end when the film goes full fantasy sequence mode. But man, that sequence fucking ate shit. And it almost fucking just threw the whole film out the window for me. But fortunately, and you know, you can read my review of it on a Fistful of Film. Fortunately, this is still a film worth recommending. Link in the description to the Rebel Taxi video. That's where you can find the most complete print we've got of this thing. It does not deserve to be lost, in spite of everything it tries to do to make itself lost. But it is truly a wonderful, wonderful piece of animation history. Recommended. Go check it out. And as will and testament to the off-the-cuff nature of this show, last segment we're gonna record here is just gonna be me gabbing about Supertramp. I threatened it earlier, and now I'm making good on the promise. And the reason why is just simply, I've really just fallen in love with a lot of the group's stuff. I'm not crazy about a lot of the more popular Roger Hodgson material. Give a little bit, chuck it out the window. Dreamer's a little too sugary sweet on the open for me. Bloody Well Right, love it to death, but like so many people, thanks to the joys of classic rock radio, my main exposure to Supertramp has always been Breakfast in America. From the title track to the immortal Logical song to album closer Child of Vision, which is one of my all-time favorite rock tracks of the 70s. It's just a beast. And there were great things that came after it as well. I like Cannonball. I dig, even though it's clearly the album that they kind of, you can tell this was the album they were breaking up on. Songs from the music video singles from Famous Last Words, It's Raining Again, and My Kind of Lady are good bubblegum pop for what it is. But man, Breakfast in America, just grand slam. Both the Davies cuts and the Hodgson cuts. And you can tell they're two different styles, are able to coexist on this album and are brought together with this immaculate level of production. Their Wurlitzer glistens. It's a beautiful electric piano tone they got on this. And you could hear the very rock-steady rhythms of Hodgson and then the very jazzy, loose, free-flowing style of Davies. And again, it's one of the reasons why Child Division is one of my favorite tracks, because they both come together on that. And you have classic Hodgson-style, lyricism and his, pounding away on the electric piano. And then at the end, you can tell it's Davies because no one plays jazz like Rick Davies. Oh, man, the piano solo that comes in at the end of the record. This is one of... Long songs are never a problem if the song is damn good to begin with. It's the reason why Stargazer by Rainbow makes my eyes water. It's why I can get lost in Led Zeppelin's Kashmir, and it's why I love Child Division. When the musicianship is on top, tracks like Child Division you could live in for years. And that piano solo at the end is one of the things that makes the track. It is so satisfying to listen to. It feels like a very honest album, especially because its intentions that Davies and Hodgson had agreed upon was essentially as this dialogue between the two. They're incredibly, different, incredibly strong, strong-willed people with strong creative vision. And I believe it was Hodgson who kind of described it as this perfect dialogue, as both talking to each other and talking at each other. I might disagree with something, Rick believes, or, he might, look at things one way and I see them as another. And that's kind of what makes that album so evergreen, is because not only does it have that slick polish of production, but it also is beaming with an honesty and a sincerity that you don't see in a lot of other pop records. I'm not saying that there aren't, by the way, but I am saying that the broader popular sound is a very manufactured sound. And it's why it's wonderful to see so many independent labels and so many independent means of getting music from an artist to an audience. So that way you're not constantly dealing with the industry machine and the manipulation therein. We also don't have much of a monoculture these days, so, that also contributes to kind of pop stagnating and having to become its own sound with a very kind of specific vibe and feel to it. But to bring it all back to my rant about Supertramp, I love digging into the band's music, and I damn well love Breakfast in America. One of those things that you think you'd get sick of after hearing it, for most of your childhood on classic rock radio, but man, that LP kills. Get it wherever the hell you get your damn music from. Alright, that about does it for me. If you dug the show, leave us a like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. If you want to help keep the train rolling, go buy me a coffee at our designated link down in the description. And of course, down there as well, you'll find all the other many exciting things I'm up to in the World Wide Web, as well as the many exciting things we discussed today. Thank you for your time. As always, we'll catch you on the flip side.